We're all playing a game here, and I've been noticing in our like collective culture it seems like the last 5 or 10 years, there's been this like spin on winning and losing and how everybody just wants everybody to win instead of having winners and having losers. And this conversation was kind of interesting of like it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work to become a winner in this world, whether it's in business or in sports or whatever. And so I've just been going through this reflection process this last week since I was at the beach with them and just around like what has my relationship to winning been in my life? I mean,
Mm,
I've played a lot of sports and that, so I have a fairly solid relationship, but like reflecting on my history of winning and reflecting on the history of like, okay, I was always like one of the better players, but never the best. I was always one of the better teams, but never the best. And so like even that creates a narrative subconsciously around winning. And then the question that I was asking him, because we were kind of coaching each other back and forth, was like, okay, what is the win? How do you know when you've won the game that you're currently in right now?
mm,
Like we're all in a season, we're playing a specific game. How do we know when we've won the game?
mhm,
And I think like unpacking the previous relationship we've had with the idea of winning, because I think a lot of people hold a lot of baggage even with the word winning and wanting to win. And I think if we have that baggage around winning, then we can put ourselves in situations where we're sabotaging our ability to succeed. If we don't want to win, so maybe it's like taking on a client that we don't want to work with or underpricing ourselves. So we kind of stack it against ourselves and make it harder and harder for us to win the game,
mhm,
which is
mhm.
one of the beautiful things about being an entrepreneur is like we're playing a game that we actually can win. Whereas if we're playing the employment game with a cap on what we can do creatively, a cap on how much money we can make, like it's hard to win that game.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Even, yeah, even just hearing when you use the word win or winning, I immediately have the association of lose or losing as well. And
Right.
and also like the word competition comes to mind. If you're winning and losing, you're competing, and all of that I can feel it in my body that I shut down, and I tend to even avoid those words where instead I think of like I use uplifting instead of winning, like
Yeah.
uplifting or collaboration. But if so, I do partner dancing, as you know,
Yeah.
and I very briefly had a practice partner. Well, I had a practice partner for a year during COVID, but he really wanted to compete, and I didn't. I just wanted to get better as a dancer.
Yeah.
So we would compete or practice with the intention of competing, and we had different reasons. And then I competed one time with him, and then I never competed again because I didn't want it to ruin my love of the dance and of social dancing. And then I was like, I can still get better and improve without competing. And so I found other ways of how I could do that. So for me, I even have to completely change, like, not the word winning. I need a different word for myself um around that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the idea of winning, we've been conditioned to think that if I'm winning, then whoever is
Right.
playing the game with me is losing. And
Right.
so like if we win a contract, if we win a deal and get a new client, then does that mean the client loses? If we close a
Right.
contract, does that mean the other person loses because we just won? And so it's not we win and they lose, at least not in the game that we're playing here.
Yeah.
And I think the way that we're trying to rewrite the rules of how we do commerce is we're trying to find the sweet spot where you win, I win, the people
Mhm.
that we're all going to serve win, and we're creating this like collective win.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
we still have to be hungry for the win and finding that. We still have to understand what our win is. And if you want to use a different word, that's okay. But winning was the context of the conversation my buddy and I were having.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's really interesting. So even just listening to you there, it's like, okay, so there's an aversion to winning because it's like you're like, whoa, I can feel in my body. It feels really uncomfortable to lean into this
Yeah,
winning thing,
yeah. Which
which
is
is fascinating.
Yeah, I'm probably, which is largely why we've talked about this before. I have an edge of if people reach out to me to collaborate, I'm game.
Yeah,
And like probably 75, 80% of the time, I end up like working with them in some way.
yeah,
Um, but my edge is reaching out to other people um, because because in some way I'm worried that they think I have some sort of agenda and I don't want to like feel like yeah, it's just an interesting thing that my mind does around it. So I love your reframing of the winning, like what I often say to my some of my teacher trainees is like that all tides, everybody comes up with the tide or whatever.
yeah,
And so having that framework or idea around winning in with that term that it's like everybody coming up with the tide.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So the history or the homework is to like reflect on what was your childhood experiences when it comes to winning.
Yeah.
Did you have any negative experiences that had to do with winning and losing? And we all did, for
Yeah.
sure. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
all, especially living in North America, this is a competitive society. And so like right from kindergarten, we're pinned against each other. It's like, okay, class, we're going to divide into two groups and we want one of the groups to win, which means the other group's going to lose. And it's just like again and again and again, every day of our life through all of our childhood, we're always competing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like that is not how a positive society flourishes. Like we have to be
Yep.
collaborative.
Yep.
But how can we be collaborative and win at the same time? And that's like a new game that we're trying to play here is where we can win. So that's, when we if we post this somewhere, it's like everybody's homework is like reflect on your childhood experiences of what winning meant to you, winning and losing. Because I can guarantee, like a lot of the most successful people that do end up making it, they have some form of like competitive story going on where they're winners' mindsets. They're playing to win. They're trying to win. Now, not all of them are trying to win for the greater good of all. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to win for their own good. And that's not what we're about here. We're about trying to lift all the boats.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting exercise and thought experiment. It's just reflect on winning, understand what you're trying to win, what that game is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that.
and be
Yeah, I think this is like perfect timing, especially with all of my outreach for the signature workshops also.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So,
good. I'm glad it's relevant. That was
yeah.
one of my musings over the last several days. It's just like, oh yeah, this is strange thing. I'm sure there's a lot of baggage for a lot of people when it comes to winning, especially in this space of like holistic folk that are trying to do good work in the world. Winning can feel pretty icky to a lot of people and no and because they don't want to be competitive with each other and in this space is like if we're all doing good work then it should be good and why would we compete, but it's like if we have the aversion to winning, then
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to actually keep leveling up to the level that we're all envisioning, whether it's like buying our own piece of land and starting our homestead, or it's being able to pay for our family vacations. If that's the goal for somebody, is like, I want to go on vacation with my family and have plenty of money to do it, then that's the game and that's the win. But if we have an
Mm-hmm.
aversion to winning, how are we ever going to get to that goal?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's like all these subconscious things that happen for people that are in this space trying to do things with their businesses that they don't even realize they're sabotaging their ability to succeed because of this story that we have with winning.
100%. Mm-hmm.
So let's
Do
win.
you feel like there's a lot of power just in shining a light on, bringing the unconscious to subconscious to conscious, whatever those thoughts are?
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, have you done anything else that you found helpful for you working through some of like your subconscious blocks?
Um, I think time is a wonderful thing. Being aware of like what we're working through. One of the things that my buddy mentioned in this conversation is that I naturally let I will share my celebrations. And he said
Mm-hmm.
that's really unique. A lot of people hold their celebrations in because they don't want to feel like they're bragging.
Yep.
And he's reflected to me that when I share, it doesn't come across as a brag. It's like literally it's a celebration. And so I would say having like somebody who loves and trusts you that you can share all your celebrations, like whether
Mm-hmm.
it's in a community like the Magic Mind here, like you sharing your success with the VA, or it's like having a couple close friends that understand the struggles that you've gone through to create what you have, and that when you have these wins, that we can openly celebrate them, and that it doesn't have to come across as egotistical and bragging, but it's like actual relief and joy that the thing worked out that you worked hard to make happen. And I think that's another thing is people have an aversion to celebrating their victories when they happen because they don't want to make the people around them feel bad or feel self-conscious or judge them for winning this game. And so that would be another one is like just making sure, because I think if we can celebrate the wins, that lifts our energy up. It also tells our body and our minds like we want more of that. Whatever that is, that's we're gonna go for more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
for golf, when I hit a bad shot, I try to learn from the bad shot. When I hit a good shot, I let myself feel the good feelings and I remind my body that we want more of that today. Like that's the feeling we're going
Mm-hmm.
for right there.
I love that. I love that also when you share with someone who you trust that you know will receive it well and will celebrate with you, that it could also over time help rewire if there is that negative belief of if I'm winning then I'm isolated somehow,
Yeah.
like not supported or celebrated, that can help to rewire some of that. So I love that too.
Because there's nothing more deflating than like you poured your heart and soul into something, you successfully launch a thing, or you make a bunch of money doing this thing you poured your heart and soul into, and then you close your laptop and it's just flat. There's nobody to celebrate with. There's nobody that's like stoked with you. It's like I've had that experience with several of our launches, and it was really destabilizing to feel like, why did I just do all that work
Mm,
uh, to not have this opportunity to share the joy and the relief with somebody that it all worked out and we won the game.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I feel like if we don't celebrate, then you're just focused on the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and like that feels like a recipe for burnout. Like
Absolutely.
you have to, yeah, celebrate and enjoy those milestones. Hmm.
Yeah, even the small ones, like for somebody that's, they're working with their first client, that's a big celebration moment. Or they just added for the first time ever, they put B-roll on a YouTube video to make it more interesting. That's a big celebration. It's like, remember to celebrate all these little milestones of like new things that we're learning. Just like, when my son does something cool that he's never done before, like yesterday we were cold plunging together and he really didn't want to do it. And I just continued to like coax him and be like, it's okay, you're gonna feel like a superhero once you get through it.
Yeah,
And then we were in there 5 times. We just kept going in, and he felt great. But we celebrated that. It's like it was a big moment for him to go through the resistance and then power through and get through the other side. And he was stoked.
that's
So
awesome.
it's important. We got to celebrate and we have to want to win, which means if we want to win, we have to know the game we're trying to win. Is it the
Mm,
family vacation? Is it the homestead? Is it a number in the bank account? Is it a number of humans we're trying to serve and support?
mhm, mhm.
What's the game we're trying to win?